And a disorganized attachment, unfortunately, what you see is the parents and other caregivers have provided terrifying experiences for a child. And these can be in the form of just parents looking terrified themselves. So because of our whole system of mirror neurons, we soak in what we see in others. So if I'm a baby and you're feeling frightened and confused, I get frightened and confused just by your fear. And that in itself can create a dissociated state, a fragmented internal sense of self. The other example would be if you were actually abusing me emotionally, physically, sexually, and I would develop a dissociative condition as well. And that the research is very clear on that, that the bind for a child is that when a parent is either terrifying directly or looks terrified and therefore is terrifying, it puts the child in an untenable situation. There is no solution to the fear I experience because one part of my brain says, you know, I'm feeling fear, so I need to go toward my attachment figure to be soothed. But another part of my brain says, I'm feeling fear, I need to get away from the source of terror. So one part says, go to my attachment figure, the other part says, go away from my attachment figure, and there's no solution. There's literally no solution. The whole system collapses, and I fragment with dissociation. And when you follow these kids as they get older without treatment, what happens, unfortunately, is their ability to regulate their emotions is severely compromised. So if I feel angry, I can't calm it down. I can't make a separation between my impulse and my action. So there's a lot of acting out, that is taking the inward world and acting it outwardly. There's also a feeling of inability to understand other people, and I get very disrupted by other people's emotions. So I can have a lot of trouble having intimate relationships that give me a sense of comfort and safety. And I may misinterpret people's reactions because the way the mirror neuron system, we believe, works is it learns from experience. So for example, if I've been abused as a child or terrified by my caregivers, and I'm just interacting with someone as an adult and that person raises her hand, well, if I never was abused, I might interpret the meaning of this raised hand as they're waving hello or asking a question or flagging a cab. But if I've been abused, my mirror neuron system automatically interprets the intention behind an action. And therefore, this action is I'm going to be struck by this person I'm talking with. So my action at that point is in my own brain. I develop a constant vigilance for are things safe or unsafe. And I'll interpret this as unsafe. And once I interpret it as unsafe, instead of being receptive to what the other person is saying, I become reactive. And when I become reactive, I go down one of three roads. I either feel totally hopeless and helpless, I can't do anything, and I freeze. It's one response. Or I feel like I'm massively in danger and I want to run, so I flee. And then the third option, which leads to violence, of course, is I fight. That within seconds, I interpret this act as a violent act. I go from receptivity to reactivity. I then have a choice of these three options. Am I helpless? No. Am I going to flee? No. Then I'm going to fight. And if I have no separation between the impulse to fight and just feel, oh, I'm angry, I'm seeing red, I better take a deep breath, I better walk away, I better take a few seconds between this impulse and the action actually starts to generate its own violence. Because once I enact a violent behavior, then my whole system is put on alert that I'm engaged in a fight. And everything that I've grown up with from an evolutionary point of view over millions of years of ultimately being a fish in a cave protecting the female that I'm laying eggs with, I am going to fight to the death. And it becomes a matter of life and death. It's not just about this, 100-year life I have. It's millions of years of history when the fight response becomes activated from the brainstem, right? And so when there's a release of the cortical control over these subcortical impulses, then all sorts of things can happen that have an evolutionary basis to them, that are beyond even just my own personal history. Sure, I can enact the violence I saw when I was a kid and saw my father and mother fighting, or the violence they enacted on me. Absolutely. No question about it. I can learn that. But I also have a whole brainstem fight response that I didn't need to learn anything about from anyone else, but millions of years of genetic sculpting that have shaped my nervous system.